So I think we should start now. Can you hear me? So if
Yeah.
okay, perfect. So welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for joining a series of Notex talks. So as you know that Notex, it is a platform. It started like back in 2021 as a research project, but over the period of time, we have the participation and the collaboration from all across the world. So now the Nortex platform, it work as one of among, it is one of the few research platform which is growing across the globe in textiles. So we were working on the circularity and sustainability from quite a lot of time, and we were having a lot of awareness session. We conducted different sessions in different industries. We like having conferences and everything. But uh, 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 around some months ago, we were we started to think that we are like talking a lot about this concept of circularity, and we were like having a lot of things going having happening in the global south and north. So when we say global south and north, so north normally we say the countries which are importing the textiles, and the global south which are making the textiles and are making things and exporting it to the European countries, America, etc. So since there were a lot of things happening in global north, which are like 12 countries, you can say OECD country for simplicity, and there were discussions and things happening on the global south as well. So we brainstorm, and we said that okay, let's start a debate. And it is a very timely debate that now we have like over a decade that we are talking about this concept of circularity and sustainability. So we need to check that whether we are going in a right direction, or we are going to achieve what we have uh, committed with this humanity, that by the mid of this century we will be fully circular, we will be net zero, and by the uh, end of the century we will be containing the temperature rise, and we will decouple the material use from the economic growth. Another objective was to identify systematic gaps that we should pinpoint and find the discrepancies if there are certain discrepancies. For instance, that there are a lot of manufacturing it's going around in the global south countries, and then there is a lot of the waste it is being generated in the global north. It is ultimately coming here in the global south again, but of course there were uh, different projects and things are going in the global north, that how we should define this waste. There are a lot of fashion trends which are going on. So whether these things are aligned with the global goals, or they are like taking us to the different dimensions. Then we have to evaluate that if the transition is going fairly, either whether the global south is getting its fair share, and whether the north over there the things are on the effectiveness is there. And then finally explore the collaboration mechanism, that if the mechanism are right, which need to make this happen. So this will be the purpose of this series. We will be having monthly or bi-monthly webinar. We already have the collaborations with Fashion for Good, Circular Economy, Reverse Resources, Closed Loop Fashion, BSR, and WWF, and there will be a lot more coming in the next months. So thank you once again to everybody for joining this series. Now I will hand over to Mr. Saqib Suhail he's like a wonderful host. He's the moderator, and he will be like with us during this journey. Over to you, Sakib sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mazammil, for introducing the series of webinars through Notex. Hi, Zohail. I work as Head of Engagement at the Microfiber Consortium, which is a science-led organization working on the issue of fiber fragmentation across its life cycle. I'm glad to be here, but before we start our panel, I would like everyone to scan this QR code and share your thoughts regarding circularity. If you go to the next slide, Dr. Muzammil, the question is over there, and you can see it on the Mentimeter as well. What is that one word that you can think of which comes to your mind when you talk about circularity?
So if
So
everybody
we would,
has just scanned it, so we'll just move to the next slide. So if you have scanned it, so you can just tell us. So I will move to the next slide.
yeah, you can also use the code which is there. You can go to menti.com and you will see the question. So I'll repeat the question in one word. How would you describe circularity in textiles? We have lots of participants and only one couple of words. The slide till up. Give you guys a minute to write down your answers. I was expecting costly to come at some point of time. Now we're talking, more words coming in. Interesting to see regenerative, resource decoupling, viability, closed loop. Okay. Recycling and regenerative have come on top. Top words being used, I guess. Okay. 30 more seconds and then we'll move to the panel. Thank you, everyone, for putting your answers in. We appreciate that. And we will keep this in mind during our panel discussion as well. We'll not be discussing this now, but it will be interesting to see if this changes by the end of the webinar. And I'd also encourage all participants to type their questions in the chat box so that we can answer them at the end of the panel. All right. So moving forward, I would like to invite my panelists, Dr. Yasser Nawab and Alberto Scavini, to the panel. And first, Dr. Yasser, you can introduce yourself, and then Alberto, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the meat of the.
Thank you, Sakib, for inviting me. So I'm Dr. Yasser Nawab. I'm professor of textile engineering and vice chancellor at University of Somalia.
I would also like to thank everyone for having invited me to this webinar and Sakib for his moderation. And my name is Alberto Saccavini. I'm a consultant for succession working with Blumina SRL here in Italy. And I'm also a professor at Polytechnic University and Milano Fashion Institute. And thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you both for your short introductions, but you guys can go and take a look at their LinkedIn profile. It's a big profile, so thank you for keeping it short and simple, guys. All right. So, as the topic suggests, the reality check, right? What is the reality check of textiles and circularity in 2026 and beyond? And I'll start with you, Dr. Saab. Trying to give the perspective to go global south on what do you feel are the triggers and challenges when you think of circularity in textile? Like, what is really triggering this discussion for the global?
In fact, thank you, Sakib. In fact, everyone has different perspectives. So if we talk about Pakistan, the trigger is are the regulations from the importing countries, uh, means EU and US and other countries. So mainly for us is the triggering factor. Otherwise, if we talk about environmental impacts or if we talk about resource deficiency or if we talk about other things, so in my point of view, the major trigger is that there are regulations in EU. So the brands, they are asking that the material, it should be circular, the processes, they should be circular, net zero, it should be implemented, and we are implementing it. There are other secondary triggers, such as you can business. Then the technology is also another trigger. It's increasing with the passage of time. Earlier, when we talked about, in fact, recycling materials, recycling. So mainly it was mechanical recycling. Now other technologies, they are coming. When we were talking about reducing carbon footprint earlier, uh, with the passage of time, solar energy and other energies, they are coming. Uh, so mainly, in conclusion, these are the regulations and the pressure from the importing countries.
That's interesting, Doris. That's felt like a lot of pressure coming to the global south. And Alberto, what do you think? Do you agree with Dr. Yasser's assessment that these are triggers coming in from the global north? And is that top-down approach really useful?
Thanks for phrasing in this way the question, because you are anticipating my reply. Even though I do definitely agree that compliance in an extensive way, as Professor Yassir just mentioned, it is indeed a trigger. It's a trigger for the business community. But is it the trigger of our reaction to what they are, to what circularity is supposed to be, or is it the reaction of what circularity needs to be? In one sense, are we talking about doing something because someone else is asking us to do it, or are we doing something because think that it is indeed what needs to be done? In a way or another, are we just reacting to something, or are we foreseeing a need in the future and the need for circularity? It has been stated in a very strong way by scientists and researchers in the last decades, I would say, not just in the last years. And so, is it the industry moving in a certain direction because of legal regulations or requirements from brands, or because it needs to move in a certain direction? And on top of that, I would even say, but why then are these brands moving in certain directions? Because let's try to see the things from both sides of the supply chain. Are we are brands asking for circularity to their supply chains just because of the legal regulations, or is there something else behind it? What is the consumer role in this? Do we do we think that the request of the consumer community has got a role in that as well? I'm just putting question marks, actually, more than answering to your questions. But these are the reflections on which are I am involved in this latest months, actually.
Thanks, Alberto. And I thought we invited you to answer the question, and you put up more questions for the rest of the
Sorry.
panel. But it's interesting that when you mention regulation, but not the issue, right? Since both of you come from academic backgrounds, the industry background, it's an interesting line that you need to cross to understand why we are doing the why of circularity. Is it if there was no regulation, would we still believe in this? Would we still go ahead and do that? Uh, are we basing our decisions on science or just the economics of it? Dr. Zah, would you like to answer that first and then come back to Alberto?
In fact, in ideal condition, if I'm at industry, so I would love to implement circularity because it's good. It's good for the generations of future. So all these things, ethically, otherwise, these are good. But if we are in fact sitting at a business place, so business in fact it's at the top. So I always say that when we talk about three p's of sustainabilities is people, planet, and profit. So I always put profit at the top. So if there is a business case, if the business is there, so then you can think about people, you can think about planet. In fact, this is psychology of the south, which is this is in fact true. So, in my point of view, if the business is there, if the economics are there, so people will be implementing here. We are not a society which, in fact, move with the principles, or so it's again a principle that we are earning. And the recycling, in fact, sector in Pakistan is an example. So they are doing it since 50 years, the recycling of textiles. 25% of the volume of textiles, they go to they are being wasted, and they are again recycled. Nothing goes to landfill. And why they are doing it? It's not for the circularity, it's not for the environment or people or planet. They are doing it for the profit. And with that business, they are in fact indirectly giving a benefit to the planet as well as people.
Thanks,
I would
Oscar.
continue.
Yeah, yeah.
May I continue on the same
Yeah.
line, actually? Um, uh, because, well, eventually, um, regulations aren't an old stuff. It's actually pretty new. I would even say it's not yet even there for some of them. We are just hearing about, it's gonna come, it's gonna come. I'm talking especially about the EU regulations. Um, and um, about these concerning regulations, I would invite everyone to join the EU textile ecosystem platform that the European Commission has put up as a place where um, the entire community can talk about and discuss about the issues towards sustainability and digitalization, competitiveness and resilience into an ecosystem that is designed for that. And it's an interesting place where the discussion within the industry can really happen. I would bring that because I'm raising this because regulations are not there, but the discourse and the actions, as Professor Yasir was just mentioning, are there since far longer, since many years. Just talking about the recycling supply chain within Pakistan, and I could talk about the wool recycling districts in Italy, or many other aspects of circularity that have been there since long time. And more in general, when talking about sustainability, it's not something that it has been that regulated so far. And actually, that means that up to now, all the actions have been done because of other reasons rather than the regulations as such. The example of chemistry within our industry, it is a clear example of that, of the work that ZDHC has done in that direction. And before that, all what has started was I was looking at some images of some textile fair where I was inviting Greenpeace to talk to the industry more than 12 years ago. Uh, and it was completely not even close to what regulations are, what the discourse on chemistry has gone ahead. Um, but adding on this, I would also raise another, not a question, but is a maybe a contradiction on something that is happening. Are we actually doing circularity or something that is circular? Or are we actually doing something that is circularish? What do I mean with circularish? It's not my words. I'm picking from someone else saying on this. Are we actually trying to find solutions to try to do business as usual, or are we actually doing circularity? And this, to me, it is a crucial point within the circularity discourse, because it is clear that the academia and the researchers have gone in the direction of telling us, please, either you do something, and you do something, yes, as Yasir was saying before, for the future generations. Either we do it, or either there won't be uh, enough resources to keep up business as usual. I'm not saying that we need to reduce or give up our industries because of that. I'm saying that we need to find and to concentrate probably more on new business models rather than concentrating on small actions that can
Yep.
be actually seen more as circular-ish than circular.
It's an interesting point, Alberto, you raise about the new business model, right? And this is what we hear a lot in events and conferences as well, that the current business model cannot support the future of circularity or textiles. But Dr. Yasser, I'll go back to you and ask you this question. And I think someone also asked this question in one of the chat boxes as well, that implementing all of this, is this really conducive for the business environment when you see the impacts of tariffs and regulations coming in and the cost of implementing all the compliances, what kind of space do we leave for the supplier side implement all of these solutions?
In fact, I will simply say no. Uh, the environment, especially in the world where we are sitting, it's not conducive at all. So I was talking to someone from in fact, we wish to become circularish, as Alberto he was saying, and for that there is a certain cost. Because with the business as usual, we wish to add a patch of circularity. And when we add that, there is an additional cost, and no one is ready to pay that cost. And if we wish to make our system or ecosystem circular, for example, for energy, people they have invested a lot in solar systems, and it was a big investment. And at the end, it was good for our climate, less GHG emissions and everything, green energy. And suddenly we changed the regulations in Pakistan. So leave the EU, we have changed that, and now people who have invested a lot, so they are in trouble. So what to do next? So yes, business models they are good, but with that the external, in fact, elements, they must be sustainable as well.
True, Dr. Sir. And I think one more point also I would like you to point out is when we talk about circularity, often we just get fixated on material circularity, right? Like you were saying, people, planet, and profit. And does that really mean that it is only the circularity is linked to the material that we're using? What about the biodiversity, the whole ecosystem that's being impacted, and sometimes by the actions of circularity? Right? Like Dr. Muzammil was informing us in the intro, that there is a lot of waste being generated in the global north, which then comes back to the global south as pre-loved or used textile product to be recycled to make that beautiful circularity story. So does that impact the environment as well? That running after the story, we're creating a new evil.
Uh, I will say no. So most of the, in fact, waste which is coming from the global north to the global south, especially to Pakistan in textiles, in electric, in other sectors. So the waste which is being received here is recycled. So it's creating a lot of businesses, and of course it's good for the people. For planet, I will say there is not a lot of, in fact, material which is disposed of or creating pollution. So I don't think so that it's a so big problem as it is in fact discussed in Europe, as recently they are implementing some regulations on unused clothing and used clothing dispose of there. So I don't think that they are understanding exactly what is happening here. So for first part of your question, in fact, we need to take ownership. The circularity is good for us. In fact, Pakistan is one of the biggest, uh, uh, in fact, the impacted nation in the world due to all these problems. And if we take ownership, it will be good for our people, it will be good for our country. But for that, in fact, creating awareness is very important, that we are not doing so. In textiles, yes, industry which is export oriented, now they are aware that we need to implement circularity due to the regulations. uh, but they are not owning it, they are doing it because they are being forced to. So we say innamal amal bil niyat. So the actions, in fact, they are based on what you are aiming for. So if आपकी नीयत जो है वो, if it is good, so ultimately it will be good, it will be a greater good for everyone.
I really hope so, Dr. Saab. And Alberto, coming back to the point of the consumers that you raised earlier and connecting it with circularity and all all of these concepts, does that make the consumer in the global north more comfortable in going for fast fashion when they assume that there is a good circular model available to convert that into different products?
It's actually a very interesting one because the discussion on the role of fast fashion within all this discourse, it's very strong, and it's actually very important for for the volumes, of course, of what is generated, and especially when the regulator, when it started to pick up what the academia and the researchers used to say already, started to question itself about the use of garments, not only of the purchase. I mean, going ahead with our circularity and understanding what happens within the circularity discourse after the purchase of the garment. Nevertheless, the the question the question of how do we deal with all these garments once they are at the end of their first cycle of life or their first life. That's the main point, and that's where the complexity of circularity has is major failure to the point of today. Is where the mixing of waste all in a single bin, that is what the used garment collection system, and you see it very well when it arrives in Pakistan for recycling. It is the major driver for limiting the quantity of or the level of recyclability. But on top of that, I would detail another aspect that goes hand in hand with what is perceived as fast fashion, that I normally don't call fast fashion, but I call cheap fashion, not to use bad words. What I mean with that, is the unrecyclability or unreusability of garments because of their poor quality. So is the lifespan of the product as such that is too limited to envision a second life as a reused garments, or even a recycled life that, let's not forget, in circularity is the last option available before energy recovery. Uh, and that's for me, it is probably one of the major factors when we talk about circularity, is the durability of a garment as such. And not only the durability, the technical durability, we can do tests to understand how durable can be a garment, but how can be durable within the wardrobe of a person, and means how long does he wants to keep it. And here we are getting out of our textile ecosystem into the definition of, let's not forget, we are talking about fashion that is deeply linked to the emotional, and therefore emotional durability of garments. Therefore, I mean, consumer, it becomes far more crucial than what we expect.
That's very interesting, Alberto, that we talk about consumer behavior and psychology of the buying behavior, and what everyone in the decision making pins on is that this is what the market demands. Okay, I'll ask you guys one more question, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Yeah, I see a few questions in the chat box as well. Uh, so, Dr. Yasser, I'll start with you, and then Alberto, you can top it off after that. What can we do in terms of the technology landscape that we have right now to ensure that the products which are designed in the future are more enabled, have an enabling environment for circularity, and also do not have a negative impact on the environment?
So if it is your question to me, so I will say that it's complete regime change, complete change of minds, and it can be only done with awareness. As Alberto, he was saying that cheap and I will add fast fashion. So, in order to have a change shirt every week or change textiles with colors and different every week or every month, we are in fact we have shifted to the cheapest and cheaper solutions. So it's completely a change of mind, and it can only be done by the awareness of consumer that what we are doing, it has a negative impact on the environment, on the planet, on the people. And if consumers they are convinced, then of course we need to shift to mono materials. It will be a bit difficult, but we have to change it. As in the current system, we create a complex textile, and that textile it cannot be recycled. So we create a problem, and then we try to solve that problem. So why to create that problem at first place?
God looks beautiful, Dr. Yasir. Alberta?
Well, I would definitely continue on the line of what Dr. Yassi just said. And I would add to this the fact that there are two aspects that for me are interesting is creating the problem, as Dr. Yassi just said, and that's happening not only with mixing many different materials within one product, creating a product that is difficult to be recycled. That belongs also to the chemistry of our industry. That needs to be taken into consideration in the circularity discourse. On the other hand, I would talking about technology, as you were mentioning before, uh, never. It is very clear that there is a lot of investment in textile to textile technologies, and there are a lot of projects popping up, startups here and there, all over the place. Definitely, there is a need of huge investment in this direction. Um, because the technology is not yet 100% there, because the economies of these technologies are not always easy. Um, but I would put the attention also on the fact that if on one hand textile to textile technologies and textile to textile it's a very attractive thing because of different, the fashion industry is very happy to do things with the fashion industry. And it sounds very circular to transform something made of fabric into a yarn and then or in a fiber and then respun it and remake it into a textile. But as I always try to make as an example, if I transform my used textiles into a panel that is used for insulation in the building industry, that is used in a building and will stay in that building for the next 20, 25, 30, 50. I don't know. We all have architecture from the Middle Ages or from centuries and thousands of years old. Uh, what about that? Is that less circular than our textile to textile technology that is today still very expensive and not always available? Of course, it's a provocation, mine, but yeah, let's not forget about what is called industrial symbiosis when we talk about circularity. Nevertheless, technology is crucial
Yeah,
to the
it
entire
is. It
discourse.
is. Yeah, and when we talk about like uh, the end of life or second life, then we also have to see the impact that it will have when it goes back to its end of life. and how then we can circularize. And it's a good point that you're trying to find other ways to use the material rather than just going from textile to textiles. But then it also raises other issues of environmental impact. But yeah, there's so much to discuss within circularity and textile, and I think probably a day's discussion would not be suffice for that. But let me ask you a few questions from the chat box that you guys can answer quickly so that we can take as many questions as possible. Uh, in 1 minute, Alberto, if you can answer, what one systematic change that must happen in the near future to prevent circularity from becoming just a story or greenwashing exercise?
It is a systemic change, of course. No, I definitely I would say that there is that governance will become crucial. And when I talk about governance, I mean the internal governance of organizations, and more than that, the governance within supply chains. The role of circularity is not an individual exercise. It is a supply chain exercise. There is no way that we can achieve an objective, a circularity objective, alone. So if I have to give a single answer, I would say supply chain governance.
Cool. And Dr. Yasir, what would you say about, I'm joining a couple of questions on economical viability. How can organizations and suppliers like Global South churn out sustainable circular products with increasing cost of making goods and the increased cost of embedding technology to do that?
In fact, Sakab, if the focus is on product only, so for sure we will be adding a patch and it will be becoming expensive. But if we will in fact address the whole problem, so by the end of the day, the whole process it will be in fact cheaper. For example, we were talking about energy. So if you have less in fact if you have cheaper energy, if you are using all your waste in the process again, and if you are using sunlight for the lightning and all these things, so at the end, if you address the whole problem, so you will be cheaper. But of course for that an investment is needed, and that investment it's a pain point in the countries like Pakistan, because if they are taking from the financial institutions, if they are taking loan from them, so it's very expensive. So this is the question which is there, and someone, our government or the global north, they need to support them for this transition. Otherwise, in fact, it's something which is very difficult.
Okay, sorry. And I'll stick to you, Dr. Yasser, and then Alberto, you can reply to the similar question about regulations. The current circularity frameworks being developed in the global north, are they aligned with the realities of the global south? Dr. Yasser?
No, in fact, when they were developed, they are in the context of keeping in view the information which was available in the global north. But the good thing is they are still not implemented, and there is a discourse which has started. So we are giving our point of view, what is available here, and I'm very hopeful that there'll be changes in the near future in these regulations.
Alberto,
Um,
your point of view on that?
I I can only agree, and the issue is even greater for certain aspects because it's not the fact that global south is not considered when talking about this regulation. Sometimes it's it feels that in certain moments and for certain aspects, it's actually kind of narrow-minded, even, especially when talking about recycling as such within circularity. And not considering the fact that recycling should or is happening not within the same place where the regulations are happening, or actually even the consumption of the good is happening, but is happening elsewhere. And uh, envisioning a disruption of this supply chain that is already existing between the North and the South in this very case, because of the regulation. I mean, in Europe, they are talking about creating 5, 6 textile recycling hubs within the continent to ease the recycling of used garments within Europe. But the fact is that, again, the supply chains, of the textile supply chains, they almost do not exist in Europe. And so what we have to do, we have to go again and search for these supply chains outside. So if the idea is let's try to keep waste and circularity within a shorter distance, well, we need also the supply chain, but and so it's not always well thought, or at least is not yet framed in a way that is consistent with the reality of supply chains on a global scale.
Thank you, Alberto. And I think we have just time for one last question to both of you. Well, we talked a lot about product circularity, but if you can elaborate for the audience, it's not just material. What else do you think is part of circularity frameworks? Alberto, you want to answer first?
Well, I within the circularity discourse, it is waste reduction. It is an issue. Definitely, it is one of the pillars of circularity, and that's very technological, and that's very much and waste reduction doesn't talk only about the industry's waste reduction. I mean, how efficient is our cutting table? I mean, we are doing our best, but the human body is 3D and our fabrics are 2D. So there is nothing extreme that we can do there, even though zero waste fashion exists and approaches are very welcome, and AI and technology are helping us in that direction. So again, it goes back to waste reduction at consumption. Waste reduction to be read as if there is no consumption, there will be no waste. In that sense, and it's not let's produce less, but let's produce probably something that is lasting longer. And in that sense, so this is for sure something that needs to be uh, rethought or well thought at the very beginning, and that belongs to design for circularity rather than circularity as such.
Okay, Yasser, your take on this?
Yes, so Alberto, he has almost covered. So I would like to add that it's not only materials. We wish to reduce waste, or otherwise, I will go one step further, that we wish to reduce consumption of new materials, consumption of energy, consumption of whatsoever we are doing. So we wish to reduce that, while in fact taking into account the deterioration of planet biodiversity, keeping in view that the people, they are it's not only for future, it's also for the present. So people, they should be taken care of well. So due diligence, it should be there, biodiversity. So it's a complete package for the present generation as well as for the future generations.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, and thank you, Alberto, for your time, both of you. I think, as I said earlier, this 45 minutes was not enough. The topic is so wide, and that's why NTU has this